Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple minutes while a few more folks join us. Hello there, Michelle. Folks are
Hi.
still coming in, so we're just going to wait another minute or two. It's just one slide. All right. We are just after, yeah, we're a minute or two after the hour, so I'm sure folks will still keep coming in, but for the time being, we'll get started. So welcome to September's session of Be Informed. This is our every other month 45-minute or so session that we host. So this is in webinar format, so you all start on mute, but we do want to have a robust discussion as part of this session. So please, as you have, so please, introduce yourselves in the chat, but also if you have questions for any of the people who speak today, please just drop it in as you think of it, and then we can circle back and either answer it as we go, or there will be some time at the end. And we are recording the session, and we don't really have many slides today, but any slides that we do have, we'll end up sharing. And we usually send those out to anyone who's registered, as well as we post all of the recordings for the Be Informed sessions on the website. Our website, hepbunited.org. Which leads me to, if you've come here and not been to one of our sessions before, welcome. I'm Frank Hood. I direct the Hep B United Coalition, which is run by the Hepatitis B Foundation and APCHO, which is the Association of Asian Pacific Community Health Organizations. Hepatitis B has been around for just over a dozen years now, and we are located in 39 states or 27 states and 39 cities. We have more than 60 national and local partners now. This is a couple months old, so I need to update the number. We've been averaging about a new member a month, so some great growth. And we really exist to bring organizations from across the country together who are focused on reducing the health disparities of hepatitis B. So that's through raising awareness, doing more screening so people understand their status, connecting those that have been screened and found lacking in vaccine protection to vaccination, or linking those who've been screened and found to be living with hepatitis B to treatment or care in some way. Our partners really run the gamut from community health centers to health education organizations on the ground to student groups, as well as big health systems and health departments. We are our membership also takes on a variety of because our members are very different, they also serve very different communities. So some of our members will focus on a specific community that is facing diabetes, high blood pressure, and hepatitis B, and they're really tackling all of those health issues in a sort of syndemic way. And then we have others that are more siloed and only focus on a subset of infectious disease like HIV, like Hep B, HIV, STIs, or just or at a health center in general. And so as part of their just normal community health, provide hepatitis B information and services in addition to other other health services. And I bring this all up because today's session really does is for folks doing work in their community. So what is being formed, again, just in case you haven't been here before, every other month we host this 45 minutes long, and it takes a form of a echo style kind of didactic presentation. So we have someone with subject matter expertise on a specific topic come in and provide information, and then we usually follow that up with someone who has done that, whatever the topic of that session is, in the field and is able to sort of report out on its successes. We have been doing this program since May of last year, and so I think this is our like 9th or 10th session. And it really has run the gamut from epidemiology to treatment guidelines to Hep B and Delta in harm reduction settings to how to get and maintain grants as a nonprofit. And as I mentioned, it follows an echo style format. So we're doing the welcome and housekeeping right now. We're gonna, my colleague Michelle and I are gonna go and present some pieces. And then we have actually a much shorter case study than 10 minutes that we're gonna show. And then we'll have some Q&A and open discussion at the end. So today, I'm excited because I get to be one of the speakers today. We are going to really focus in on our Just Be storytelling program. Today's session's on empowering voices, real stories and advocacy for hepatitis B awareness. And this is, while we are very much going to be focusing on the Just B stories and hepatitis B, I want to be clear from the get-go that the things we talk about today are actually very applicable on other issues. And really, this isn't stories and advocacy, although it's not even advocacy, it's education, and we'll talk about the difference in a bit. But really, this is a session on just using personal narratives in your efforts, and personal narratives can be powerful on numerous different efforts, whether it's clean streets or increased lighting or something medically related like high blood pressure and hepatitis B. Before, and normally I would have us dive right in, but before, oh no, give me 1 second. I want to, while I have everyone here early on, because I know sometimes we lose people throughout, I want to plug our next session real quick before we get diving in. We'll plug it again at the end. Just had to copy and paste. I had it and then it broke on me. So in 2 months, we will be having another session. And let me just show it real quick. And I just set the link in the chat for folks to register, but we highly recommend coming and already right now just getting registered for November session, because we're thrilled to be joined by Coney Bedent from the Division of Viral Hepatitis at CDC. She's one of their epidemiologists and surveillance officers. This has been a session that has been months in the making. We are so excited to be able to pull that off here in 2 months. Going to be diving into the new hepatitis B case definitions that the Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists, or CSTE, have come out with. So normally I wait to the very end, and I will replug this at the end. I just know that sometimes we lose people as it gets close to 3:45, and so I wanted to plug this twice. So that's what's happening. Go ahead and get registered real quick, and you can listen to me talk. So today we're going to hear, I'm actually just about to turn it over to my colleague, Michelle, who's going to talk a little bit about the storytelling program. And then I'll come in and talk about some of the ways that these stories can be used. We'll also share some stories. I'm have 3 about 2-minute clips that I'm going to play. And then we have a recording from Richard So, who couldn't be here live with us today. He's in an important meeting, but was still willing to record a few thoughts for us. So at this moment, though, I will pause there and turn it over to my colleague, Michelle, who really is the point person on the Just Be storytelling campaign and our international version called Be the Voice. Does really great work, and I will let her go.
Okay. Yeah, just finished sharing my screen. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle and I manage the Hepatitis B Foundation Storytelling Program, which is a space where we highlight the real life experiences of individuals that are affected by hepatitis B and HCC. Through storytelling, we aim to empower and connect people from around the world who are affected by this serious disease, while also helping to raise awareness, reduce stigma, and promote essential actions like treatment, testing, and vaccination. And so our storytelling program efforts began in 2017 here with the Just Be program, which is a US-based initiative where we partnered with Story Center and APJO. And since then, we've held workshops and had over 48 participants from the US and Canada, which helps offer them a platform for them to share their stories and to raise awareness about hepatitis B. And so these stories have been translated into over 13 languages, such as Mandarin, Vietnamese, Arabic, and French, to help make them more accessible to more people. And so building on the success of Just Be, we have also launched the Be the Voice Story Bank, which elevates the voices of people on a global scale. Nearly 300 million people around the world live with chronic hepatitis B, but many of their stories remain untold due to stigma and discrimination. And so our platform really allows them to have a space to talk about their experiences and to raise awareness about hepatitis B. Currently, we have about 70 stories collected for the global storytelling program, and it continues to grow to this day. And so if you or someone has a story to share when it comes to hepatitis B or HCC, please feel free to share your story. And we have in the top right corner, you can click on the Share My Story button and you can take a look at the 3 different programs we have here, and you can submit an interest form. So on the left, we have the Just Be, and then over here, we have the Be the Voice. And at the bottom, we have HCC. And you're also welcome to email me at michelle.liu@hepb.org with any questions, or if you are interested in sharing your story or being involved with our program. But I will pass it back over to you, Frank.
Thank you for that. The storytelling program has been around for 8 years now and slowly but surely been growing, but really over the last year since Michelle has come on, has grown in leaps and bounds with quite a few new stories, especially on our international side. And even though we do split our 2 programs into domestic and international, the stories on the international side very much can still resonate here domestically. Even there are numerous examples of folks with concerns around liver cancer, around concerns around treatment to access, and the impact of not knowing your status. And here in the US, these are all items that are very applicable. So I encourage you not to, those of you on this webinar, to really look at both avenues in terms of your incorporating stories into your work. And that website is hepbstories.org. So I'm just going to go and over the course of the next 15 minutes or so, dive into 3 different examples of where storytelling can really be used in our day-to-day efforts. And by those efforts, I mean educating whoever it is we're trying to educate. So I'm going to have an example around educating clients. So these are individuals that you are trying to get connected to services. They might be seeing you at a screening event. They might have come into your clinic. You might have just run into them, I don't know, somewhere else and struck up a conversation. But you as that person are trying to get this individual to access health services. We're also going to look at where these personal narratives and using these stories can be used among peers. So this would be something where someone like me, who is running a coalition or maybe leading an organization, would want to reach out to someone else in a similar position and try to convince them to partner on an item. and kind of using one of these stories to help understand a different perspective than one I can bring. I myself am not living with hepatitis B, so I could not give a personal narrative. But maybe a personal narrative is important to my partner, who I'm trying to partner with, and so being able to show where these personal narratives live, and the fact that those of us on this side working on it are familiar with it and aren't coming from a completely uneducated place can be helpful in that coalition building. And then lastly, I'll go into an example around using these personal narratives for someone in leadership. So these could be faith leaders, and you're trying to convince them to use their pulpit to talk to their congregation about the risks of hepatitis B, or maybe promoting an upcoming event. This could be elected officials, where who are just unaware of what is happening in hepatitis B in their jurisdiction, and you have an opportunity to just educate them. You're not even asking them to necessarily do something; you're informing them of what is happening amongst their constituents. It could also be someone like an administrator of an agency or a health system, someone who has the ability to increase the number of screening events their hospital system does, or implement electronic health records, so on and so forth. And they're asking though, like, really, is this a problem? Is this a need? And you're able to show, kind of lay out in a variety of ways why increasing access to hepatitis B services might be good. So looking at the client side, I was going to go and play a clip real quick. Like I said, I have three about 2-minute clips to play. And from there, we'll come off and do a little bit of a quick debrief. So this first share is from Roger. I picked this one because I felt like this could be a really good video on a client-facing side. Let me hit play here.
I had a pretty healthy childhood. I was very active, always a star athlete in school. I've been going to the gym since I was 18. Sure, like any young person. Sometimes I went out on the weekends and had a few drinks, but I always got my physical checkups. About 6 years ago, after one of those checkups, my doctor called me and said, "Hey Roger, something doesn't look quite right from your blood test. I want you to come in and get more testing." So I did, and afterwards, she called me into her office and said, "You've got hepatitis B." I just looked at her and said, "What's that?" I really didn't know what it was. So I went home that day and started to research it. That education was so key for me. I realized I had been infected as a kid. My family got tested, and when we found out my brother had it too, I made sure my wife got vaccinated and our kids too. When I got diagnosed, my viral load was pretty high. My doctor decided to put me on medication. I take it once a day now, and I'll have to for life. That medicine is a lifesaver. At my last checkup, I was completely healthy. I don't feel any side effects. I've also been volunteering in trials for years now. It's just a matter of time until a cure is found. It's coming. I tell others in my situation, don't let it keep you from doing what you want to do. It could be a curse, but it's a blessing too. Since I found out my status, I have started to live even healthier than I did before. Even though I think about it a lot, I live every day to the fullest.
So our videos start with a good intro with some information on B, and they also on the outro have information. I'm just showing the little clips in between. Roger's story, I think, is a really good one because it comes from a place of someone who was doing what they were told they were supposed to do to live a healthy life, and was still kind of caught by surprise. It really kind of provides that Hep B 101 for someone who might be unaware of the disease, or the fact that many folks don't understand that they may have it. And I also just feel like he, I don't know, I mean, he's a little bit like Superman. I mean, he's got the Clark Kent glasses, but he's going in there, he's like, I'm a family guy, I'm an athlete, and this thing could have been my kryptonite, and instead I, found a way to overcome it and ensure my family got protected. And so I really think this video is a good example of one that you could play. So if you're running, if you have a set location for your clinic and there's a waiting room, you might have a TV in it or some sort of other video. This would be one that I would put on that video or on that screen and kind of just have running as folks are waiting in the waiting room. And so maybe it's one other thing to like for them to ask their provider as they walk in. This is also something that you can have run at your events. So I know folks might be like, well, I don't have TVs at my events. Thrift store laptops. I've seen laptops at my local Goodwill for like 20 bucks. Yeah, they're slow, but all they got to do is run a video. Go and download some of the videos off YouTube that or our site that you think might be good, and you kind of just have them run in a playlist on whatever free media player you have. And usually most of those cheap laptops can actually run a video kind of simply like that. And so you could have, a table with that plugged in that's just kind of cycling through the same dozen or five or however many stories you picked. And as other folks are at the table getting their brochures or whatever else, or at the screening event, it's just a way to fill some of that time with an impactful message. Lastly, this is one of those videos, and as you're trying to engage with clients, maybe you are texting or emailing them a way as a way to engage them, convince them to come into your, or come into your clinic or come to your event. You could include a link to this video in that email or text as a way to be like, hey, I know you think that like you feel 100% great and you don't need this, but like this is one of those silent diseases, and maybe you saying that in combination with Roger's story gets them to move to action. So we are really moving quick here because our time's already halfway done. The second group I wanted to spend a moment touching on was peers. So this is when you're trying to go and kind of, this is like business to business outreach, or just you're going to another organization to try to convince them to partner you, come into coalition with you. Just, a way for you to show that you have a grasp of the issue and are trying to show them where they fit into it. One of these pieces that might be, and one of the other things I thought about this is, and Shell's stories about going to a blood drive. If I'm going and trying to convince someone to loan me their space to do a screening event or something like that, having them understand how impactful that event could be on a specific end user, like someone who came into an event like that and then found out their status, might be a way to convince someone to give up their space more so than being like, hey, 50 people are going to learn what their status are this weekend. That could be, if you give us, loan us the space, and that number of 50 might feel abstract. Whereas, you show them this video, 2.5 minutes, and then be like, there are 50 shells out there in the world just waiting to be found. You can help us find them. And so I'm gonna show this one, and you'll see what I mean, just being able to show how one touch point can have such an important downstream impact.
As I bared my arm for the tourniquet, I felt good about being part of the military blood drive. It was 1984. I was 18, doing my first year of service. A few days later, I was pulled into a medical appointment. The doctor asked me to sit down and said, "You have hepatitis B." I was stationed in England when they removed me from the medical field, a career I had always wanted. Instead, I was put into a supply career where I couldn't infect anyone. I was treated like one big walking infection that no one would touch. I went to get my teeth cleaned, and the dentist double-gloved, masked, wore a gown, and covered all the lights and tools with plastic. I felt so isolated I couldn't even talk to my family, They were all back home in the US. When I thought of them, sometimes I thought about all the stomach problems I had complained of as a kid. I had been adopted from the Philippines in the 1970s. I was tested for this and that, but not for hepatitis B. Testing for the virus wasn't widespread at that time. I was called a hypochondriac when the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. 4 years after I found out I have the virus, I gave birth to a son. Because he had oxygen deprivation and jaundice, the idea of mother-to-child transmission came up. The doctors wouldn't let me see him or hold him for 2 days. Stigma, lack of knowledge of the disease, not knowing what to expect. This is how it went for decades. 35 years later, I'm working in the medical field again. When I was thinking about going back to school to be a physician assistant, I asked a professor, "Can I even be a provider living with this?" He said, "Of course you can." Things had changed. It still haunts me to remember how I was treated. It was so taboo. Now we know better. Just be well informed.
Tell stories, just so powerful. But it really is a personal narrative showing how one event left someone feeling isolated. Well, one event led to a course of someone being isolated in her career, but also feeling isolated due to geography, due to stigma, due to status, and to be able to show how, but then also overcoming those barriers to still be able to find a way back into the career she wanted, to raise the family she wanted, for that family to be healthy. I think really resonates with someone who is in a position to kind of help other people get to that place. And so as you're thinking of different ways to use personal narratives to advance your efforts, this was one that stood out to me as like, if I want to have someone give up their space, I want to let them kind of know what that screening event might end up for someone else, being the situation. And instead of being isolated, kind of also being able to say like, hey, and we're not going to let them leave and know their status and be like, oh, that's all. We're going to make sure that they get linked to care and aren't alone in this effort. And can you please help us be a part of that? And that. And then my last example in terms of audience is leadership. And so I made a comment before, like faith leaders using their sermons, elected officials. I know many people think going and talking to elected officials is advocacy, and I want to be very clear that there is a difference between education and advocacy. Education is you going and showing something that is factual. So you going into your local elected official and saying a certain X number of people, it is believed by science that X number of people are living in this area or state with the disease. This number of folks don't know. This number of folks are not vaccinated. This number of folks aren't being treated. Those are all facts. And it is then the next step of, please give money to prevent that word then becomes the advocacy. So you can go in and have a conversation that is just education, that is not advocacy. And they may take what they've learned and then go into action, but that is their doing. If you're looking to just bring awareness to this issue to someone in power, that is education. And so I do want to make that distinction, because I do know that some folks aren't allowed to engage in advocacy. We at the coalition are also limited in which advocacy we can do based on where our funding comes from. And so I do want to be clear that you can go and educate an elected official and not have it be advocacy. It's really when you are encouraging them to do something differently that it starts becoming advocacy. So if you're looking at just kind of reminding these folks that they have an audience of their own, whether it's their congregation or their hospital users or their citizens, I think it's in order to make that connection with those groups a little bit better, it's showing that this disease isn't just about one person, it's about one person and everyone else they touch. And so for this example, I wanted to show Michelle's story, not my colleague Michelle. This is a different Michelle. Um, and her husband is also a storyteller. And so if you are interested, you can go and get the person being talked about in this video, go see his story as well. But this is Michelle's story, and this is one of our early stories. So it's quite a few years old, and her husband's doing quite well, so that's great. But here is her story.
We had no idea it involved so much to even get listed as needing a liver transplant. You need a high score on criteria for liver damage, but you also need to be stable enough to go through the surgery. In 10 days, my husband had gone from feeling tired, looking jaundiced, to being medically induced coma because of liver failure. He was now first line for a transplant in Arizona. We were told there were 2 liver donors for him. I felt so hopeful. Then the first available liver was turned down because it was physically damaged. The second one looked good, but it wasn't compatible based on my husband's body size and weight. We didn't hear anything for several days. Finally, one afternoon, the doctor told me that there was a possible third. They scheduled the surgery for midnight. At 11 p.m., we still had not gotten for sure confirmation. I finally called the nurse and said, "Please tell us what's happening." I held my breath, and she told me, "Yes, they are going to do it." I was really nervous when they rolled my husband's bed into the operating room. The transplant took about 5 hours. Afterwards, he was delirious. He didn't know where he was seeing and imagining things. He thought someone was trying to kill him. I tried to calm him down, and I told him, "You're okay, you need to rest." Even though I understood why he was in that state, because I work in the medical field, I was still very worried. The medical team was great, but what made the difference was our family. We stayed together, we prayed together, and everyone was so supportive. Just be faithful.
So that story is really kind of hard to process sometimes. Like imagine just quickly seeing your partner deteriorating that quickly, not knowing what's happening next. I mean, requiring a whole team of doctors, providing round-the-clock care plus the intensive surgery, the long recovery process. Usually, individuals with a liver transplant have the 2 years following where still needing quite a bit of round-the-clock care and have restrictions on the ability to travel and are in a state where infection's a little bit higher risk. And so I thought this video does a really good job of, to those potentially in power, of showing that this is a community problem. When one person gets sick and doesn't know that they're living with this disease, it impacts their family, it impacts their community, it impacts their colleagues, it impacts their local health system, and it impacts others who might also be in that local health system. So really just an opportunity to show kind of that larger and broader impact. And that is it. I'll ask my colleague Michelle to come back on screen, but we have kind of 10 minutes till the end of this to take in some questions. Let's see. Oh, I thought I saw one up here. recommendations for access to treatment who screen positive but don't have resources to cover their treatment needs. So looking at the looking in the chat, we had a question about what recommendations for those who need to access treatment but don't have the resources to cover their meds. First off, this will depend on if you are domestic or outside of the US. So in the US, if you are in a state with Medicaid expansion, trying to get health insurance, through that would be the first call. Otherwise, like marketplace.gov. If getting insurance in order to access those treatments isn't available, your next best bet is a patient assistance program with one of the manufacturers who do that work. But additionally, this is one of those issues where sometimes like reaching out to the foundation through our consult line around specific treatment access solutions might be beneficial, especially if you are living outside of the US. So the HBF consult line is another place to turn. Do we have other questions that folks want to ask? Actually, I'll ask a question to Michelle. Michelle, I'm gonna put you on the spot, sorry. So you go and do some of these stories over Zoom now. How does a storytelling session with a new storyteller kind of operate with you? Like you and them, they get together, what happens next?
Yeah, so for the Be the Voice storytelling projects, I typically do those over Zoom, and it makes it easier, especially for people that are global storytellers with the time zone differences and stuff. But typically through the Zoom session, I ask 3 general questions to kind of help prompt people's story. And of course, people are able to share whatever they feel comfortable with. And we also have the opportunity to do this anonymous as well. So I just wanted to emphasize that part as well. I know a lot of people are concerned about privacy, so we do have that option. But typically after the recording session, I will edit that into a video and send it back to the storyteller to make sure that they're comfortable with the content and see how we will promote it from there. Yeah, but I hope that answers your question, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do a small stipend to those who complete the storytelling process just because someone is sharing something personal about them, to which we are trying to use to expand our mission. And so we certainly feel like they should be compensated for that. And your interviews with them usually go like 30 minutes or so, and you end up condensing that into just like 4 to 6 minutes of material. So there's quite a bit that you have to sort of kind of comb through.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the times, we don't even use like the whole 30 minutes. I think like 15 minutes is just like the storyteller asking me questions. So honestly, the recording part is not even that time intensive. So please don't be intimidated by that.
That's what I was trying to get to that same place, and I think you did a better job than I did of making it not intimidating. I'm looking at my notes and I'm realizing there was one thing I did not make a little bit more clear. And so, this entire last 40 minutes of the session has been focused on using personal narratives, and we're talking in this instance just be videos. But I think it needs to be clear that personal narratives can also be used in these ways through like live, like having someone with you and like kind of turning over to them and having them present. You can do it through audio. And so if for some reason a video isn't available, but like a CD player or a tape player is, that still has the ability to bring in this lived experience or this personal narrative. And it can be written. So as you're thinking about different materials, like printed materials. This is something that you could take a personal narrative, turn it into a written word, and be able to promote it that way. That was it really is just the goal of it is to connect this lived experience into your effort in a way that makes the most sense. Do other folks have? We don't have any new questions popping in. Yeah. Anyone have anything else? Oh, Michelle, estimate how many different languages do we have videos in at the moment?
I think we have over 13 at the
Okay.
moment. Maybe more than that. I'll need to count that again. Just because we've had so many news stories coming in lately.
Yeah.
I'll have to get that number.
That's why I said guesstimate. Because I mean it's same thing. I've been struggling to keep track of my member numbers as we keep adding. Excellent. Well, the I don't see any more coming in, so I will just do these last two plugs. So the first is just again, this website, the hepbstories.org, is where you can find the Just Be and Be the Voice stories. We also have some Hep Delta stories on there. We have some links to our other hubs, as well as the Meet Our Team page, which Michelle was showing earlier on her screen share. So if you or others have a story to share, please do go onto that site, click the button in the upper right-hand corner, and share it with us. Additionally, because I said I was going to do it, I'm going to do it. Please go and RSVP for our next Be Informed session. They are just about this long, 45 minutes. But this next one is also going to be very exciting, but in the nerdy way. We're going to get real technical and talk about numbers and how we define those numbers on our next session, which is on the new case definitions. Very exciting. For those of you who need like a 30-second primer on what case definitions are, when we go and say, oh, this state has this many cases of acute and this many cases of chronic, the case definitions is how the doctor or the epidemiologist determines what is and isn't an acute case, a chronic case, kind of where that threshold is. And we update it as we learn more about the virus, as we get more sensitive testing options, as we get more testing options, and as just the virus evolves and kind of grows, and our understanding of the virus evolves and grows. And so the kind of, just like they update the dictionary, CDC and the others have to update their case definitions. And so we just had a case definition update, and that should make it kind of a little bit easier and clearer for jurisdictions to report on their numbers. But it does have that downstream impact on organizations like ours and many of yours, in that it changes what we end up saying is the burden of this disease in the country. So really hope that you all take an opportunity or take a moment to register for that. But otherwise, I'm happy to give you 3 minutes back. Thank you all for taking this time to come in, get a crash course on how to use personal narratives in your efforts, and really appreciate the nice shout outs in the chat from everyone about them being good and touching stories. Really hopeful that these are something you can use in your work. And if you have a good example of, oh my goodness, I totally forgot to play Richards, didn't I? That was my bad. Oh my goodness, we're gonna spend this last 3 minutes. This is what we got. I'm so sorry. I got so excited coming out of that last video. Okay, here's Richard So. He's the executive director of SF Hep B Free. Um, this is just 3 minutes, and then we'll have this be our closeout. I am so silly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Richard So, executive person or on SF Hep B Free, and I'm sorry I can't be there in person or online for the meeting today, but Frank asked me to talk a little bit about how our nonprofit, SF Hep B Free, uses the Hep B storytelling in our work, and we really do, and it provides a very special part, an asset in our community education. As many of you know, getting the message across is often very hard, or even if the message is understood, getting people to take action on their hepatitis B testing or vaccination is difficult. As you know, folks don't feel sick, or there's some stigma around it, or they just don't feel related to the cause. But one of the great things about the stories is that can change all of that perception. And I'll give you a really good example. This past year, we embarked on a journey to educate and do sessions with the Pacific Islander community here in the Bay Area. It is one that was not taken care of that well and didn't use the healthcare system, but we knew hepatitis B rates in that immigrant population were high. And so when we went to do the educations and originally pitched the idea with Pacific Islander community leaders and nonprofits, showing the videos that the Hep B Foundation had made from Pacific Islander folks I think, made a really big difference. And we show them when we do the community educations themselves. And we ask, what stood out for you? How can you relate? And we really think it does make a difference in the number of people who get screened. There's always that idea that if we just put out enough PSAs said by doctors, it might make a difference. But really, when folks feel like they're seeing themselves, hearing themselves, and in their own language as well, that makes a big difference. And so we've also used those videos for Cantonese audiences and picked a Cantonese speaker, Mandarin audiences and picked a Mandarin speaker. So having the videos in our back pocket and actually using them is really useful for us, and I think it can be useful for you too. I think as we move forward, and Frank has talked about this, we want to make using the Hep B stories as easy as possible and also as useful. And so I look forward to doing that more on our end and working with the Hep B Foundation. And any of you out there who want to ask how we've done it, we just integrated it into our PowerPoint that we use to present and play that video. And you just got to make sure it loads and is able to play, bring a mobile speaker or something when you have it. That's all for me. Thanks for your time, and I'll pass it back to Frank. Thanks, guys.
My apologies for almost missing that. I wanted, and I didn't cover something that he covered, in that we do find these videos and these personal narratives to be a good way to combat stigma and the perception of the disease in the public. So I didn't touch on it because Richard touched on his, and then I almost didn't play the clip, but that is the end. Thank you all again for taking the time to come to the session, and hopefully you have some great ideas to how to use this in your work moving forward. And as I was saying before I remembered, I had Richard's clip. If you do use these videos in your work and you have a good outcome or a good case example, please come and let us know, because we don't always hear exactly how the outcomes of folks using them, how it turns out. And so we'd love to get more examples of good or bad efforts trying to use the story. So thank you again, and hope to see you all in November.